Thank you for joining our Officiating Pathways webinar tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Priyanka Chadha. I work with Motorsport Australia and I manage our participation programs such as Girls on Track. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are all dialing in from. I'd also like to pay my respect to elders past and present. I'd like to thank Supercheap Auto for presenting tonight's webinar. Girls on Track champions, 3 of them on the screen today. Charlie Barlow will be leading tonight's discussion. Over to you, Charlie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Priyanka. And it's wonderful to be back for yet another Girls on Track webinar. It's wonderful for you all to be here and to join us. And today I'm very, very excited to speak about something that personally I am so passionate about, and that is volunteering and officiating. I think without our volunteers and officials, there is no motorsport. They are the backbone of what we do and run so many motorsport events across so many categories across the whole country. It really is. Without them, we do not have a sport. So thank you all. If you're an official, if you're a volunteer, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's where I began my journey in motorsport as a volunteer. You know, I probably wasn't as reliable to be an official, to be honest. I get a bit confused by the flags and rules and things. But volunteering in an event sense was where I started my career in motorsport. So yeah, I can't wait to delve into these 2 amazing women that have forged fantastic careers within their officiating capacities. So I'd love to welcome Telea, Plummer and Dani Meyn. So let's do a clap, everyone. Hi, ladies, how are you?
Good, thank you.
That's good. So you're joining us from WA. So we've had to work out time zones and all the things because I'm in Queensland. So what time is it where you guys are?
Well, the sun's still shining, so it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah,
This country is so big, it blows my mind. Blows my little English mind. So to give you a little bit of a rundown of how we're going to work the webinars, I will launch into some questions for both Dani and Telea, and then afterwards we'll open it up for a Q&A for everyone else. So have your questions ready, and there's no silly questions here. Anything big or small, these girls have seen it all, they've done it all, and they will be able to give you some wonderful advice, whether you're starting your journey or whether you're some ways down the path. So what we'll do is I think we'll bounce between the 2 of you to try and sort of keep it a bit conversational rather than me go through all the questions with you, Dani, and then all the questions with you, Telea. We'll sort of open it up. So we say, if I ask the question, Dani, you answer first, and Telea, you tack on the end, and then we'll sort of roll from there. So first things first, we have to find out your backstory, because any good character, we need to know where they came from and their struggles and their triumphs. So Dani, how did you get involved in motorsport? Where did it all begin?
Well, it all began when I was 6 weeks old, that far back. I got dragged to the drags by my parents when I was 6 weeks old. So technically that was my first motorsport event. As an official, I got started as a teenager as a flag marshal at what is now carco.com.au Raceway, I think they call it now, Wanneroo Raceway. So my very first event as a flaggy was the supercars. So it was daunting. It was eye-opening because it's our biggest event of the year in the state. So that was over 20 years ago. I won't give away really my age, but it was over 20 years ago, and I've been doing officiating longer than I haven't been an official. So from there, I went from flagging through to race control communicating, where I took on the flag channel. I was pregnant, and back then I couldn't go trackside. It was one of the regulations that pregnant women couldn't go trackside. So I was fortunate to be able to go into race control and do the communicating there, which is where I go and speak with all the flag marshals. They give me all of their information at the same time. and I need to try and decipher what they're saying to be able to give it to the clerk of course who's running the event for them to make their decisions of what needs to happen. From there, I moved into event command roles. So I was assistant clerk of course and deputy clerk of course for a variety of different events. For those who know WA, I believe that the events that run in Albany and Northam, which are called Round the Houses, which is where we put some concrete walls around the streets of the big town and go and technically not race. We are competing against our nominated time and put some very old historic cars in those country towns and have a fun day. So that was eye-opening as well, because I don't know about you, but I personally wouldn't like to be heading towards walls at somewhere between 150 and 180 k's an hour. They go crunch very badly. It hurts. And then from then on, I went up to the clerk of course role at Collie Motorplex with the Vintage Stampede at Albany and Northam as well. And then a few years ago moved to Wanneroo Raceway, or carco.com.au Raceway, where I became the first female clerk of course for that track. I was then very, very grateful for Supercars to nominate me as the first female clerk of course. Unfortunately, COVID got in the way of that. So the wonderful Kay Callender got to take on the role over at Sydney for the first time as a female clerk of course, and then I was fortunate enough to do it this year for the Super Night. So that's my story in a very small nutshell.
Sorry, just before Telea jumps into her story as well. Yes, I remember writing that story in 2021. And then unfortunately, yes, I kind of had to retract it in a way because we cancelled due to COVID. Then I wrote the story about Kay as well to say how fantastic it was that she was doing it at the Sydney Opener. But of course, I referenced the fact that technically you were first. It was just So
it was just COVID got in the way.
Yes,
small pandemic.
Yes. But it's just so great to see women being appointed to these roles and showing that anything is possible. Absolutely anything is. And yeah, congratulations to you, because that is decades of hard work, and it's just wonderful, wonderful to see. And I'm so glad that you were recognised in that way. Yeah. So well done you, Dani.
Thank you.
Telea, I'm sorry. I know you and I, we've bumped into each other at many racetracks, but first it was in Perth earlier this year. Yep. So talk me through, your journey. How did you get involved? Because you began in 2015. So what's that, 7 years ago now?
Yeah, so towards the back end of 2015, I going through a little bit of a life crisis, you could probably say, and I just needed something to take my mind off what was happening. So there was a post on Facebook about wanting some people to come and give them a hand out at carco.com back in the day, Barbagallo. So jumped on board there and went, this is great, this is right up my alley. I love anything to do with cars, the noise, the smell, anything. So went out there, and I think it was a Night Masters was my first event, and they needed some pit lane officials, so jumped down into pit lane and haven't left. I have sort of lived at Wanneroo over those 7 years. I've done different events. I've gone to Darwin for the Merlin Triple Crown. I've gone to Bathurst a few times, and lucky enough to become Chief Pit Lane this year for the Super Night as well. So that was a pretty big achievement, and something I didn't take lightly. Huge pressure. But you can ask Dani. I don't think I did too badly. We survived the weekend. So, that was a huge achievement as far as a woman being able to. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of other women in the sport, and Michelle from Bathurst, she's our chief over there, and Deb from Darwin as well. So I certainly had those people in the back of my mind, and Michelle certainly helped me and helped mentor me into that role alongside Dani. I certainly couldn't have done it without those two women. That was a pretty big achievement for me personally.
Congratulations, that is huge, and it is a big thing to take on, and you can't sort of overlook that at all. I think to sort of stand up and say, yes, I want to take a leadership role in any position, it takes guts. So well done to you, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So we've touched on the sort of different roles that you can have within officiating, because there are so many. Obviously there's trackside roles, there's sort of event roles. So I'll just read out a few. We've got steward, scrutineer, fire and rescue, timekeeping, administration, event command. Dani, obviously you've worked your way up to clerk of course. Can you explain to us a bit sort of about that role and perhaps some other ones that you've had along the way that's sort of taken you down that path?
Yep. So the clerk of course is basically in charge of running the event, ensuring that it's run as safely as it can be and in line with the rules of Motorsport Australia. To be honest, having the flag marshal background did help a lot. It meant that I had some background of what cars do on track. It also meant that I had an understanding of when I have a flag marshal tell me that there's a car off to driver's left 5 meters off the road or 5 meters off the circuit. You sort of know what they mean, because unless you know the track, you've got to rely on the officials to tell you what's going on, because they're your eyes and ears out there. So we can only make decisions up in race control based on the information that we're given from officials. So it's really beneficial for officials to get the background if they plan on moving up into different roles, because each role that you take on, it actually has this step up experience. So what you've learnt as what Telea does in pit lane and grid, when someone gives you information, you know what they're talking about. When someone tells me from the starter's box that there's an issue with a car on grid, you've got a fundamental understanding of what they're telling you. So as a clerk, of course, you're only as good as your officials. So just because you're in charge doesn't mean that you're the be all and end all, because it's your officials team, and relying on your officials team, that makes the job easier to do, because it means that your officials are telling you the information that you need to be able to make decisions. So whatever experience you've got, whatever experience you want to gain, there's always a place for someone, and they're always an important piece of the puzzle, irrespective of what position they're in.
I couldn't agree more. And it's a family, isn't it? It becomes, because you spend so much time together as well in these. We have to admit, motorsport, it's a lifestyle, isn't it? It's not a job. So you spend a lot of time with these people, and they do become your motorsport family. So, and as you say, there's no one person more important than another. Everyone supports everyone. To get through those days, you do just want to go, I hate motorsport, I don't ever want to see it again.
But Bathurst 1000 would probably be the most recent one, when you're standing outside in the pouring rain for 4 days and you look around going, why on earth am I doing this? And thankfully you've got the fellow officials around you, because that they are bringing that camaraderie, because that is really what brings you back to motorsport. You can be standing out there in a hail, in the sun, getting poured on, it's windburn. It all sounds crazy as to why we do it, but we do it because we love the sport and we love the family that we find with motorsport.
Definitely question myself at Bathurst why I do what I do. Certainly
I did the same thing.
At pit exit, getting drowned and air soaked through. But thank God I took my hairdryer and we managed to dry our boots off. Dani and I sitting there under a tarp at the end of the day. But certainly we do it for the love of the sport and for the people that you meet and the friends that you make. So.
Yeah, because you sit there and you just laugh with each other, don't you? And you go, why do we do this? But we wouldn't have it any other way. I completely understand. I think I'm crazy, most race weekends. And then I still get up on the Monday and go back to work anyway, because I can't live without it. So Telea, talk us through, obviously moving your way through the ranks in pit lane. Where are you now, and how did you get there? Sort of tell us the sort of different roles that you've taken part in.
Yeah, so I started off just as a pit lane official, like just a general pit lane official. Obviously, I got my general license, and I had that for a couple of years, and then I was just on sort of like a yellow flag, a whistle sort of role, so just alerting people that there's cars coming. Being a marshal on the wall during a race start, having our yellow flags out, making sure there's no stall cars and things like that. And then I was like, no, I feel like I can do more. I want more. So I did my bronze assessment, which Dani kindly helped me pass. And I think we did that down at Collie, actually, at our other local track over 2 days. And that's just showing that you can that you're competent in a certain 5 or 6 tick boxes, that you can do the role under the advisement of someone else. So you're not sort of running an event, you're sort of below someone else, if that makes sense. Got my bronze, and then had the ability to keep going, and then I decided that bronze wasn't enough, and that I wanted to have the ability to run a supercars event, and that was my goal. And I worked really hard over a couple of years to push forward and to do what I needed to do. And I sat my silver assessment, which is a 2-day course, which I think we crammed into 1 day. And that is about leadership and management, and it also critical incident come into that as well. So it's not sort of for the faint-hearted. There is a lot that goes into a silver assessment. And then I had to do an on-track assessment as well for that, which I passed, and that's sort of where I'm sitting at the moment. So silver gives me the opportunity to run or to be a chief pit lane for a supercars event. Dani will correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's a national level license, the silver. It gives you a lot more sort of room to move, I guess, as far as events go.
Well, it's like your commitment is huge. The fact that you're going through all these different levels to get to the next one and keep pushing yourself and applying yourself more and more. I didn't even realize that there was that system. That is fantastic, that you've got those sort of goals that you can work towards and achieve. So Dani, obviously getting yourself to clerk of courses as well, you've had to go through all those different levels. But I think we need to be super, super honest about what a day in the life of a clerk of course would be like. So if you could run us through what it's like for you. Like, I want to know what time you have to start. I want to know what kind of things that you're doing over the radio, like who you're talking to, and maybe tell us a time when maybe it's gone really great, and maybe a time where it's been maybe one of those days you wouldn't mind forgetting.
I gather another one of those days where, what am I doing here? So as a clerk of course, my role before an event probably starts about 4 weeks out, possibly 6, depending on how big the event is. So for supercars, I was involved for about 3 months before the event. So I take part in a lot of the paperwork that gets sent around, make sure that I understand what's going on, because, running a supercars event is a big deal. It's an international category, so you need to know what's going on. For a state level event, I probably get involved about 4 to 6 weeks out. That's when the organizer generally contacts me and say, hey, this is the paperwork we're thinking about lodging for the event. Can you see any issues with the paperwork? They're called supplementary regulations. So that's what we're running our event to. So I have a look at those, let them know if I see any problems, or give it the tick of approval and let's get going. It then rolls through. Entries generally close for a state level event 1 to 2 weeks prior. So I usually get then sent the entry list of who's competing, take a look at it. If there's any issues with it that I see, send it through back to the secretary of the meeting. And then I generally start, if we have a 7 o'clock race office opening, I'm generally there somewhere between 5 and 6, because I like being the first one there to ensure that everything goes as well as it can for my officials. And I generally am one of the last ones to leave. So for a normal state championship event, I'm usually leaving about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. For the supercars event, I wasn't able to leave until we could close the medical centre. So once the medical centre could close, that's when I could leave, and that's when I could sign off the doctor for the day. So it really depends on what the event status is, but generally it's a 12 to 14 hour day, and then somewhere between 2 weeks to 3 months prior is the lead up to the event. For the day, I generally get there, make sure that the track looks okay. I generally do a lap or two, have a look if there's anything that needs to be cleaned up, because how we present the track needs to be as safe as possible, needs to be as clean as possible. I usually only do circuit events, so I'm generally looking to see if there's an event that's run the day before, has the track been cleaned up, make sure that there's no debris or anything that could possibly cause some issues with the competitors. I then go and hold an officials briefing, so let them know what's happening with the day. I generally have all the officials there, so I can run through it. If they've got any questions, they can throw them at me. Hopefully I have the answers. If I don't, I go and look for them. I then have a driver's briefing, run through some of the regulations, what I expect of the drivers of the day. Again, if they've got any questions about the day, they can throw them at me again. We then go to make sure that the track is good to go. So we're generally talking to our officials trackside, officials in scrutineering, officials as stewards, making sure everyone's where they need to be with the equipment that they need to do their job. Once that's all ready to go, we then can get running. So the lead up to the first cars on track is generally the most stressful. Once the cars are on track, it's generally when it starts free flowing. So once the cars get on, we go practice, we go qualifying, we go racing. Things, obviously, it is a dangerous sport, so things can go wrong. And when they go wrong, it can sometimes be quite big. So Telea made mention of it earlier with critical incidents. Thankfully, I've not had to deal with a critical incident, although it's been quite close a couple of times at Wanneroo. So when things go wrong in an open wheeler, they generally go wrong quite well, especially if they climb wheels over the top of one another. Then they barrel roll down the main straight, then they land upside down against a concrete wall, then they burst into flames. So that was one car. That was one car, one incident. So that was one of the 2 most recent incidents where I've literally gone to my file of paperwork, pulled out the critical incident document and went, this is looking a little bit questionable. Thankfully, within about 20 seconds, I saw the head moving or the helmet moving and went, thankfully, I don't need that, and put it away. The other one is when we have CCTV at Wanneroo and I'm talking to my deputy clerk, of course, and all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I see a car bonnet fly across the screen. No car, just the car bonnet. I've immediately called red flag because obviously seeing a bonnet cross your screen not attached to a car is really not good news. So I called red flag. We then managed to get the CCTV camera, span around, and there wasn't a panel straight on the car that was upside down in the corner. So thankfully, both drivers were okay. The poor gentleman that was in the bonnet losing car is about 6'7". We don't know how we got out of his saloon car, other than climbing out of the back window. So it does go wrong very quickly, very big. But then you have the amazing days where nothing goes wrong. Everyone has fantastic races, and they're all smiles at the end of the day. So it can go either way, but I wouldn't have it any other way, other than let's just see what the day throws at us.
I was just exhausted listening to just like the stuff that you do even before the event, just so you're aware. That 4 to 6 weeks, I was like, wow, that sounds tiring. And then that's even before you got there.
Yep.
So your commitment and dedication, like, honestly needs to be applauded, because you've had it for decades. So yeah, I can't keep saying it, like, well done to you, because yeah, I would have probably thrown a bonnet at someone by now, whereas you've kept your cool. And that's why I do the writing and the talking and not the officiating. Telea, I know we can't quite see you, but can you still hear us?
I can still hear you. I'm not sure what's going on with my camera. I've tried all my settings, so I'm really sorry. It's just died. And that's not me. Like, as much as Dani will say, I hate photos and cameras and things. I haven't like jagged it, or I haven't done anything like
Sure.
to ruin this.
Yeah,
but
accidentally pulled a cable. Oh, sorry,
no,
it's not working.
I don't know. It's like a new laptop, and I'm not tech savvy at all. So anyway, lucky you all saw what I look like before. You can just use your imagination now, hopefully, and you never know. We might sort of come back online, hopefully shortly, but I'm not sure what's happening there. Sorry, guys.
It's all right, we'll press on. Just no making faces at us, because we can't see you and it's not fair. So
That'll be when the video turns back on. Just FYI.
No, it's all recorded. It's all good. You'll see it if it pops back on.
Well, yes, as we sort of went through with Dani, like sort of day in the life of. Talk to me about leading pit lane, what your day looks like, and we need nitty gritty. You need to tell us what time you clock in, and what kind of things that you're doing throughout the day when you leave. Maybe a work highlight, maybe a work low light.
Yeah. So I kind of touch base with Taylor at the club, who's our volunteer, I suppose manager, you could call him. So I touch base with him sort of a week out, and just sort of see what sort of team I've got, how my numbers are looking, who's generally in charge, because we don't always have the same chief for every race meeting. That can change depending on who's available and what they've got going on. So I do like to touch base and just make sure that I have enough people, or if I don't have enough, then I need to sort of like prepare myself to manage with 4 to 6 people to run a lane. So ideally we would have, let's go 7's a great number. We need 2 people on grid at least, 1 person down at South Ramp to control the vehicles coming off track. Generally 3 people on flags, 4 would be great if we've got it, and then a spotter as well, which is generally whoever is chief at the time. So that's sort of a week out, and then I get to the track. I try to get there sort of half an hour early before the briefing, pick up all the radios, take them down to pit lane, all the signs, any flags, any other equipment that we might need, and I go and sign on. Most of my team generally are upstairs signing on as well, so we have a bit of a chat, and I try and work out who's doing what, and who's been there before, if I've got any new officials that I need to take into account, any sort of training that needs to happen, if I need to buddy anyone up as well. So once we have our officials briefing, then I take the team down to pit lane, and I do a briefing down there as well. So we sort of do a briefing for anyone that hasn't been there before. If I have a team that everyone's been to 2 or 3 meetings before, I don't have to go into a full briefing, but just try and make sure that everyone is safe, that they know sort of where the direction of the cars are coming and things like that. Make sure everyone's got a whistle, so closed in shoes, long pants, those sort of things, to make sure that they're safe during the day as well. Then the first sort of, as Dani said, the first part of this, the day is qualifying, so practice and qualifying. So we don't actually do a lot during those sessions unless there's a reason to bring the cars back into pit lane. If there's an incident in the qualifying, sometimes they get a little bit excited, and they do end up in the dirt in the first couple of laps. So we start all over again. So I guess it's just making sure that the cars that are coming down for their next session aren't interfering with the cars coming off the track, making sure that, you know, there's no oil spills or anything leaking from cars, there's nothing to clean up in pit lane and things like that. So once we go racing, we have everyone on the wall, well, the officials only on the wall. The pit crews can come and line their vehicles up, and then they must leave the wall. So we generally, like I say, have 3 to 4 people. So the cars will exit dummy grid. They'll go out and do what they call is a formation lap. Once they come back around and head into turn 7, the flags are out for them to position themselves on the grid. We stay on the wall just in case there's a stalled car. And then once the cars have commenced their race, which you'll hear over the radio, then we step down off the wall and continue gridding the next category. So that sort of just rolls on through. We have a lunch break, and then we sort of go into the afternoon. So I try and move my people around so everyone gets to do everything, or everyone gets to try everything, I guess. We're trying to adapt this one team, one dream motto in Perth, so that we run our pit lane and our grid as one team, as every other track does, what the majority of the tracks do that I've gone to. So everyone will learn the grid role if they're lucky enough to jump in the safety car as well, and learn that role, as well as pit lane and south ramp and things like that. So yeah, we sort of just roll through. It can be a bit of the same stuff all day, but there's always something happening. Like whenever we've got the saloon category or we've got XLs, there's always something going on. There's generally a red flag in amongst those categories, so there's always something to do. Yeah,
those Excel grids are huge as well, aren't they? I was at Morgan Park a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, there are like 40 Excels in this race. And yes, even in practice, they're like, it's like the final, and they're like all over the place. So bless them, the youngsters getting amongst it.
Helmet goes on, and common sense generally goes out the window with them. So they're always entertaining, and they always draw a crowd. So yeah, no, it's always good fun. Highlight for me in the position that I'm in is just to be able to talk to the drivers and to smell, this is going to sound really bad, but to smell the petrol and the tyres and the brakes and those sort of things. Like, that's a highlight for me. I love being in and around the cars, you know, especially for supercars. You're standing at pit exit and you're hearing them thunder past you, and it's just it's an experience. I mean, Charlie, you've experienced the same. It's just a vibe that you just don't get anywhere else. So low light, probably the weather. We're out there, rain, hail or shine. We've had days at Wanneroo where we've had to sweep the pit lane because there's that much water, like we're underwater, just to try and get the categories going and to get them out. So yeah, probably the weather is a bit of a low light, but apart from that, I mean, I love it all. I do what I do so these guys can go racing. So yeah, without officials, they don't get to race. So for me, that's, I guess, the highlight is watching the smiles on their faces, and when they come back in, they're pretty happy with their win, or they can get a bit aggro as well. And there's always a bit of a sledge thrown, but you know, all in all, it's a good day.
Well, you're in good company, because I'm a sucker for a rattle gun. If I hear a rattle gun in the morning, I go, oh, I'm at the racetrack. Everything is right in the world. I'm such a sucker for that. So there's no weird noises or smells that you can say, because we're all in the same passionate little boat. So this webinar is perfectly timed. So thank you, Priyanka. Very well done. The Girls on Track program is heading to Perth next month, Friday, the 18th of November. If you haven't registered now, to everyone around. So last year was the first time that Girls on Track was delivered in Perth, and we've got the Inspire program and the Pathways program now, which, Priyanka, again, congratulations for bringing that initiative across the country. Like, I personally loved being involved in it, not only showing the girls the different career paths that you can pursue, it's then about mentoring girls and partnering up and showing them really hands-on and in real world sense of how you can get yourself a career in motorsport. So you both are Girls on Track champions. So Dani, how do you feel about mentoring the younger girls who are interested in motorsport?
I thoroughly enjoy mentoring. I've put so much work into the sport that I love being able to pass along my passion and my love for the sport. So anyone wanting to come along and give it a go, please just come in and give it a go, because there is a spot for everyone. No matter what role you want to do, there will be a place for you. I love being able to introduce the sport to people. So anyone new to the sport, absolutely love it. Anything that I can do to make anyone's day easier at the track so that they enjoy themselves, absolutely love doing that as well. So I bear a lot on my shoulders to make sure that everyone else's day goes smoothly and that they enjoy themselves. So doing it through the FIA Girls on Track, last year was so good seeing such young girls all the way up to teenagers getting involved with the motorsport. We had a couple of girls who I think were only 11 or 12 who were an absolute pleasure to have there because they were so excited about the sport. And I believe that one of them, or both of them, I think may have gone on to actually start karting. So it was heartwarming to be able to introduce our sport to them, and then for them to come along and see what they've done in the last 12 months it's just been fantastic to see.
And Telea, yeah, being involved, Girls on Track, being a champion, how are you finding mentoring and showing girls the ways to get into motorsport?
I love it. Anyone that knows me knows that motorsport is a big part of my life, and wherever I go, there's some conversation that comes up about when I'm at the track or what I'm doing, and I guess it's a great way, like word of mouth obviously is a great way to get people involved. And I've actually managed to get roped a few of my girlfriends in to come down and to be part of the pit lane program. So that's really good. But yeah, I guess for me, when I was 10 or 11, women in motorsport wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't a big part of it, and there wasn't this opportunity. So to be able to help anyone that wants to come along, male or female, but yeah, obviously the Girls on Track program is awesome, and I'm privileged to be a part of it, and whatever I can do to help out, like 100%. I know when I was at Bathurst, I just had my jacket on and got talking to a couple of people, and yeah, it was just an open conversation. I guess it's a start to get people involved and to try and rope in a few more suckers, I guess, to get addicted as much as we are. Like, I live and breathe the sport, so for me, you can't see my house, but I've got Scott McLaughlin everywhere, and I've got posters, and I've got all my lanyards from all my events and my pins and everything. So yeah, if I can encourage one person to come and help, or to come and encourage them to do what we do, then yeah, like, my job's done, I guess.
That's so wonderful. And what I do is I pretend it's for my son and then put it in my son's room when really it's for me. I'm like, can you sign this? It's for my son. Of course it is. Anyway, so before I hand over to questions, I guess I know I get asked all the time, where do I begin? How do I get involved? And I always say, grassroots motorsport, volunteer, you'll be welcomed with open arms. However, you guys can give great advice to young women and girls about officiating and how you get started in officiating. So Dani, we'll start with you. Someone completely never done anything like it before, what would you say to them to start?
Contact your local tracks. contact your local clubs. If you don't know who to contact, Motorsport Australia is the best point of contact, because they will be able to give you the contact of any club that is affiliated with them across the country. So get in contact with the clubs, get in contact with the tracks. You will be welcomed at every grassroots event, hill climbs, motorcanas, carnacrosses, circuit racing, rally, off-road, regularity, anything that is grassroots. There is a significant shortage of volunteers across the board. So if you want to start, that's the best place to get it. It will give you the grounds to be able to step up. So if you can get your groundings in any role that you can get your hands on, you will be able to step up anywhere.
Perfect. Telea, is there anything you'd like to add? Advice for young women and girls who want to begin their officiating journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's anyone, obviously Dani and I are both in WA, but yeah, like if there's anyone in WA that wants to sort of to get involved and even, you know, come and try it. I'm happy for, yeah, like I'm on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So happy for you to like to find me, or even, oh, sorry about that. Stop.
Hi, Charlie.
Yeah, my little Charlie can go outside.
So many dogs called Charlie, it's not even funny.
Little bugger. We were doing so well. Priyanka's got my details as well, so I'm happy for them to get in touch with Motorsport Australia and for her to pass my details on. Like I say, there's never enough people. Like we could always do with a few more people, men, women, children, whatever. So I'm happy for you to contact me that way, and we can sort of get you guys started if anyone's interested.
And don't forget, you can start officiating at 12. So your kids can come along. Your kids can help in admin. At 14, you can step into timing. At 16, you can go trackside. So you can start as young as 12.
Interesting. I may know someone.
That's how I got my son into it.
Yeah, a couple of years. Wonderful. Thank you both, ladies. Thank you for being so honest and open. And like, I think if anyone's interested in officiating, there's no two better women to look up to. So thank you both for everything that you continue to do, and massive fans of you both. So I've hogged you though for long enough. So if there's anyone with any questions, please, I can't actually see anyone, Priyanka, so I have to hand over to you to kind of drive the questions. And yes, let us know who it's directed to, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Thank you. We've got actually a heap of questions, so fire away. You've probably touched upon this, but maybe just highlight it again. What do you believe is the biggest benefit of being in an official role?
Okay, so there's a couple, and I can see that there's a couple of questions about skills as well. So I'm going to touch on both. So I'm going to go back in a little bit in history of where I started. Where I started as an official, I was a quiet, nerdy teenager that wouldn't say boo to a fly. I had no public speaking skills whatsoever. By the time that where I am now, I'm now doing driver's briefings for hundreds of people. I'm doing officials briefings for hundreds of people, and I can answer questions that are thrown at me left, right, and centre. So it provides you with some grounds to build on skills that you need to be able to go for job interviews, for example, be able to present something that you have researched or you need to present to colleagues. So it's not just the fact that I know how to wave a flag and I know how to speak on a radio. It's actually building life skills and job skills as you go along in your career as an official. It also allows you to go overseas. I've done Le Mans and the Nürburgring Formula 1 in 2004. So it can get you overseas as well. So it does provide you with the opportunity to build on skills that are life skills, that are job skills. It's not just about officiating at a local racetrack.
Tila, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, I'm just trying to read the questions that we've got here. I suppose
just go over what I asked. So what what do you believe is the biggest benefit of being in an official role to start with?
I suppose the people that you meet as well, they become part of your family. I mean, you do spend a lot of time with these people. Dani and I have done trips together, and we've had plenty of highs. I don't think we've had any lows, Dani. I'm sure you'll comment on that if you are.
I tried to kill you in a car once.
Actually, yeah, we won't talk about that because remember this is being recorded, and don't put yourself in any danger here. But no, we've had some great times, and Dani's one of my closest friends. I've got so many people in my life now that I'm learning from, and that that can help you along the way and mentor you and sort of get to where you want to be. But again, the same with Dani touched on the public speaking. I hate public speaking. But giving a briefing and talking to people and having to deal with different people from so many different walks of life, it certainly helps.
Yeah, the community. It's all about the community, isn't it? And yeah, I've heard some of your epic stories. So obviously that through motorsport, which is a good thing. This one's a good question. Is it possible to advance into other roles from there, so from officiating? Could you highlight the possibilities briefly? And I think I'll just quickly touch upon one example that I know, and then you can add some others. Kimberly Hughes from Motorsport Australia has been the deputy secretary for supercars for 6 years, and she was working under or with Hannah for that period of time, and she's now taken over the role. So she's now motorsport events coordinator for Motorsport Australia. So I think that's one really good example of transitioning from being an official or volunteer to coming into the motorsport industry in a full-time role. Do you have any other examples that you two might know of?
Well, my background, obviously with Clark, of course, I'm now Deputy Race Director of TCR Australia. So I've been given the opportunity by Motorsport Australia and ARG, Australian Racing Group, to take on that opportunity. While it's still a volunteer role, it is a big step up from Clark, of course, role.
Charlie, do you know of anyone else or any other examples, because you've been in the industry for a while?
Yeah, I think anyone who knows Casey Johnston, I think I might say her surname correctly, hopefully. She began as a volunteer and took on sort of a senior volunteer role, and from then moved into working for Supercars as a volunteer coordinator. And now she's actually the head of accreditation for the entire corporation of Supercars. So she's worked very hard at that. There's also a few other roles. Lisa Tatani, who's also involved in Girls on Track program. She began as a volunteer and started as like a runner. Then she worked her way up to working for TV. So she's still in a sort of producing, running kind of role within TV, but she did also do a stint in motorsport, and she was the category manager for Super 2 for a little while. She's heavily involved in Excels as well, and I know does category management there. So there's certainly pathways, and I think exactly what Dani and Telea have said. It's if you show that you want to be there, and you show that you're dedicated, passionate, and that you want to progress, there are people that will just welcome you and want to help you get there. That's certainly my experience and others that I've seen around me. And there's so many different paths as well. I think it's about getting yourself to a racetrack and seeing all of the roles for yourself, and then finding out where you fit and what you can be really passionate about. So then, in 20 years' time, we're sitting here interviewing you instead of Dani. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can 100% do it.
Yeah, I think we consistently talk about putting yourself out there and being at racetracks, because that's the only way to really get into the sport. So for anyone who's listening, if there's one thing you're going to take away from tonight, is get yourself to a racetrack, and that's how you connect and network. And Charlie's story started like that too, and plenty of other ambassadors and champions that we continue to interview and at our events share the same thing. Next question. What would you consider the hardest aspect of being officials?
Weather.
Yeah, the weather.
Weather.
Oh,
Oh, you know, you've got to deal with sometimes you've got to deal with some serious incidents, but you also need to realize that you don't do that alone, ever. So if anything serious is to happen, you're not only surrounded by your officiating family, you're also supported by the pastoral care through our Motorsport Australia chaplains. And those in Motorsport Australia can provide support there as well. So yes, there are hard aspects of the sport because it is a dangerous sport. We're never going to sugarcoat it. It's a dangerous sport, but you're never going to be alone if something serious does happen. And yes, the weather.
definitely the weather. As I said, it does make you question why we do what we do, but it's a massive team environment. There's, as Dani said, you're not alone. Like although you've got I've got my pit lane and grid team. There's all these people upstairs. There's the team up there. There's the team of flag marshals. So as you're not dealing with these incidents or these the trying days on your own. And I think seeing everyone smile at the end of the day it makes it all worthwhile, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Coming back to that whole family community environment, it gives me a high every time I'm in a racetrack. So good. Dani, you briefly talked about this. Maybe you can share a little more information, and that's from going to a general license to a bronze to silver and then gold.
Yep. So Motorsport Australia has the licensing programs when it comes to officiating. So it's a competency-based situation where we're wanting people to get 12 months experience, basically minimum at each level. So when you first start, you do become a general official. Once you've signed the first time that you've signed up on a license, you've done the introduction course, you then become a general official. That means that you can work in any role under supervision. You would generally not be placed anywhere on your own, particularly in your first few events, because we need to make sure that we're looking after our new officials. Once you've taken on a bit more experience, so we're looking at about 12 months minimum, you can then do the bronze course in your chosen area. So it could be event admin, could be event command, circuit, rally, trying to remember what else there are, stewards, scrutineering, anything that you would like to do. There is a bronze course linked to it, which I believe they're all online now. So you do get a log on to your Motorsport Australia portal where you can go online and complete the bronze courses. Once you've done the bronze course and passed that, you then go through what's called an event assessment. So Motorsport Australia have specialist licensed holders called event assessors. And you go through an event assessment at bronze level, where basically, I think Telea touched on it, you're looking at your knowledge and experience with the rules and regulations with Motorsport Australia, being able to do a targeted risk assessment. So you look at your work environment, make sure that it's safe. If it's not, can you do something to make it safer? Work through the event assessment. If you're found competent, you then hold a bronze license. So this means that you can work individually or at a state level, hold enough experience to be able to lead a team. After about 12 months more experience, you're then able to apply for a silver assessment once you've done the silver course. This is more of a bigger focus on leadership and management, which Telea touched on earlier. So this is leading an actual team through an event, being able to deal with numerous personalities, because let's all face it, life would be boring if we were all the same person. But you are obviously going to come across people that do think differently to you, and you need to make sure that you know how to work with them as a team. So that's what Silver's all about, plus dealing with the critical incident. So you would be in charge of your team during a critical incident. So it's generally a 2-day course. Sometimes we get lucky and able to have a slightly longer day and get it done in one. but then you go through your event assessment again, which is the next level of your assessment, once again being done through an event assessor. You then are able to, after another 12 months of experience, go for a gold level license. This is basically leading a team at an international level. So for Australia, we would have supercars and generally Formula One as our international level events. So you're able to lead a team there. That does have an assessment, but it's also got you need to have 2 references generally from people that are gold themselves, so that they can reference and basically attest to you have the ability, you have the skills to be able to lead a team at that level. Because as you go up the levels from state to national to international, obviously the complexity of the event, the complexity of your teams, it does get harder. And it does get, I use the word complex, because you have more and more people on your team that you need to lead. So in a nutshell, that's basically going from general to bronze to silver to gold. But obviously there is more information on Motorsport Australia website if you want to get further information there.
Yeah, there's a document for, can't remember who asked the question, but there's a document that explains everything in a lot more detail, but that was a spot on summary. So thank you for that. If someone were to start officiating tomorrow, what roles would you suggest they get into? So I asked Kimberly this question a while ago, and she said flaggy, like you did, and she said marshalling as well. Any other recommendations, suggestions, and do you think it needs to be supercars or grassroots is fine? Yeah, if you were to redo it all over again, how would you do it?
Redoing it all over again, I'd go with grassroots. Being thrown into a supercars event is your first event, and all of a sudden you've got 30 cars on track surrounded by 4 people that you don't know, because that's how big the teams start getting on flag points, in a very high pressure, highly televised event where you really don't want to get things wrong, because you know that the millions of people watching it from Europe are going to be seeing it. So I would recommend, and I don't know if Telea thinks the same way, but grassroots at your local track gives you the fundamental knowledge to be able to start building on what you want to do. I always say trackside is the best place to start, but that depends on you as a person. So if you as a person much prefers doing administration, then there are event admin roles there for you. If you like working with computers and timing, definitely put your hand up, because we're always short of timing officials as well. But trackside gives, because there's such a range of roles, so starters box, pit lane grid, flags, you can work in recovery. So, you know, cars stop on track, cars stop in the sand, you need to go and recover them. There's just such a range of roles within the track side of things, that it just gives you a lot of basic knowledge as to how an event runs. And once you start getting that basic knowledge of what your role is within the hierarchy of an event, it starts being able to have you focus on what you want to actually do with the knowledge of what the roles actually are about.
Yeah, fantastic. Telea, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would definitely say start out at a grassroots level. Do everything you possibly can, whether it's pit lane, grid, flagging, timing, upstairs. Do it all before you decide that this is where you want to go. I love being in pit lane. I have tried upstairs. I was a communicator for one of our events a few months ago, and yeah, pass. I would do it if they needed me, or if someone went on holidays, but I certainly like I say, I enjoy the smell, the noise, and just being down amongst the drivers and the team that we have downstairs. But yeah, we'd certainly do a few local events first before jumping into a supercars, because yeah, supercars is huge and it's a lot of pressure, and there's so much happening, and so many cameras and people watching. So I would certainly I'd start at grassroots level first. Absolutely.
And I guess the good thing is the official's license allows you to, dip your toes into those different areas. So go give it a try. Again, like both of them have said, find what you're passionate about. Everyone's is different. So it's hard for us to guide you and push you into something when we really don't know, what you're all about. This is a question about your overseas experience. Are there many jobs in the international circuits, and how does one go about getting one of those opportunities?
I'm hoping jobs means officiating.
Yes.
So we have a ton of people from Australia go and do a lot of Formula One events. And they do it consistently. I've got a couple of friends that are Australian that have just finished Formula One in Austin and are now currently making their way to Mexico. So it's basically, you can ask Motorsport Australia for help in getting contact with overseas, but it's the starting of your network. So we could have people that you're working with at Formula One or supercars that do go in overseas and do it regularly. They will have the contacts of who you need to get in touch with to be able to do the tracks overseas. So it's starting your networking and building up your group that you work with, and then starting to get the experience at a local level. So whether it be state or national, sorry. And then building up the network to be able to go overseas. So I was lucky enough that my mentor back in the early 2000s actually came from Germany. So he was a German flag marshal. So in building my network with him, he took me over to the Nürburgring for the Grand Prix of Europe in 2004, and then took me over to Le Mans for the 24-hour race there, where I worked as a flag marshal. So it's really building your network to be able to get those contacts. It's not as easy as from what I've seen in the past. I could be very wrong in that you just call up and say, hey, I want to come over. It might be as easy as that if you know who to contact, but if you build up your network to be able to get in contact with the right people, you can then get yourself overseas without an issue.
That's so exciting, right?
Yeah.
Traveling the world and officiating. Wow, that's amazing. All right, last question for the both of you. Favorite memory from being a Motorsport Australia official?
You go first, Telea. Heard enough from me.
Favorite memory, probably our trip to Darwin in 2021, minus the near-death experience. Darwin, that was my first time to Darwin, and as an event, the Darwin Triple Crown was just awesome. Like I can't fault it, the way the event was run, the people, everyone's so friendly. The weather is fantastic. You even get like a little bit sunburnt. It was just an all-round experience, I guess. Traveling with Dani for the first time, I was a little bit nervous, but no, apart from the near-death experience on the way home towards the airport, they say WA West Australians can't merge. Well, yep, Dani proved that fact. But yeah, no, as far as an event goes, Darwin 2021 would have definitely been probably my favourite event so far.
And you, Dani?
First time driving into Bathurst, Mount Panorama. Can't beat that feeling. 2015 was my first time at Bathurst for what was then called the Bathurst Motor Festival, I think it was, held over Easter. Best feeling in the world, rocking up to Bathurst for the first time and seeing that Mount Panorama sign in all its glory from the front straight. You can't get a better feeling than rocking up to Bathurst. Then doing the walk and almost keeling over because it's so steep, because you don't actually realize how steep it is because the TV flattens it. But walking it, it's amazing as well. But my best memory so far has been Bathurst 2015, rocking up for the first time.
Amazing. Charlie, what's just out of curiosity?
From when I was a volunteer, my favourite memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was standing at the bottom of Tower 3 and
Oh.
annoying. Yeah. You know what it is. It's the Charlie story of, my origin story of, standing at the bottom of Tower 3 and annoying every single person that walked by, and meeting, Chad Naylon and Matt Nolte, which eventually they said my name to the right person. And a year and a half later, I was at Supercars. So I think that for me, that if I hadn't have gone and decided to make my family stay in a motorhome for the week, and my former husband hated it because he didn't like being at racetracks when he wasn't racing, which is a typical race car driver thing. I still think it was definitely just a memory that is a pivotal moment in my story, and I'll never ever forget. I'll still be chatting about Tower 3 when I'm old and sitting in the rock chair. I'll still be going, Tower 3. But I completely relate to Dani though. When you turn the corner and you see that Mount Panorama sign and you drive under that gantry, there is just no other feeling like it. And so many people that you speak to that have a love for this sport, that moment when you see it, it sends shivers down your spine. And I've seen it for years, and it still does it every single time. Even when it's pouring rain, it still does it.
All right, I think we're done with all the questions. Do you want to do a quick wrap up, Charlie?
Yes, I certainly will. Well, thank you all, everyone, for spending time with us. I know we went a few minutes over time, but no one's going to mind because these ladies are so interesting and so wonderful sharing their stories with us. So thank you, massive thank you to Dani and Telea for joining us today, sharing your experiences. And if you'd like more information, anyone out there about officiating and how you get started, get in touch with Girls on Track at motorsport.org.au. And thank you, Priyanka, for having me back. And I can't wait for the next Girls on Track event, which is coming up very, very soon.
Yeah, see you very soon in Brisbane. And as Charlie touched on, we're then going to Perth. So if anyone's dialing in from Perth, we're there on the 18th of November. We're then heading to Adelaide, and finally we're concluding the year in Darwin. So it's been a pretty big year for us. If you would like any more information on what we're up to, motorsport.org.au/Girls on Track. Thank you, Charlie. That was fantastic. And thank you, Dani and Telea. And I look forward to seeing all of you very soon.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everybody. See you at the racetrack very soon.
See ya.
Bye.